666.
Speaking of turning the oil tanker in a different direction, let's move on to topic 3. Saudi Arabia at COP26, extremely busy week in global diplomacy and a pivotal week for the climate. Richard, OPEC plus countries, including Saudi Arabia, are defending a future role for fossil fuels at COP26. Saudi Arabia's Minister of Energy, Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, said, quote, "It is imperative that we recognize the diversity of climate solutions and the importance of emissions without any bias toward or against any particular source of energy." He also said, quote, "We should use all energy resources as long as we congregate around mitigation." Things are getting a little testy in Glasgow. Saudi Arabia was accused of obstructing the progress of negotiations towards a strong deal at the conference, including by using procedural delay tactics, which Prince Abdulaziz denied. He said, what you've been hearing is a false allegation, a cheat, and a lie." Richard, Saudi Arabia is serious about fighting climate change. They will be bearing the brunt of many climate disasters in the future as temperatures rise faster in the Middle East than in other places, and they've pledged $187 billion into climate action this decade. We've talked a little bit about COP26 climate change as it with respect to Saudi Arabia, but this is a huge week for the future of global energy, the energy transition, and for Saudi Arabia's role in it.
Yeah, Saudi's got a knack, doesn't it? Saudi Arabia. I mean, we often say that things are going best with Saudi Arabia if they're not on the front page. They cannot stay off the front page sometimes. And in the run-up, we talked about it in last week's weekly episode. In the run-up to COP26, they came out with some net zero goals, and which was encouraging. They certainly have been seen as much more participatory in the net zero and the global energy conversion questions. COP26, like you say, there's been some controversy. They've been accused of slow rolling things, diverting things. I think we won't know until until we're done, and we're sort of at the end of the COP26. So it's a little premature to look at it, but looking at COP26, well, one big thing that came out of it in the draft, and there's only 84 lines in the draft, but in the draft statement, which has not been finalized, they specifically referenced the need to, eliminate coal and eliminate subsidies for fossil fuels. It's the first time it's ever been mentioned in a COP forum, so that's new. Looking at this, I think we could use a whole bunch of metaphors. I mean, if you're what type of person you're, glass full, glass half empty, glass half full, glass half empty, I look at this is like January 2. If you've done New Year's resolutions in January 1, on January 2, you actually have to
go to the gym.
Yeah. Exactly. Because there are good things that has come out of this. I mean, and some of the things that there's the net zero commitment. Remember, net zero commitments were sort of a fringe idea 5 years ago, and now they're widely accepted. 90% of the global economy, 90% of global carbon emissions. Countries that these countries that are responsible for this percentage of the economy and global carbon emissions have committed to net zero goals. 5 years ago, 5 trillion in assets was sort of covered by these goals. Now it's 130 trillion in assets. We have net zero commitments from India, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria. It's a different conversation. Clearly, it's a different conversation. But the devil's in the details. And you have things like the methane agreement, which is quite encouraging. I mean, methane is the second largest, signed by more than 100 countries, second largest contributor to global warming. But the top 3 methane emitters didn't sign it. The afforestation agreement that on land use, that's very exciting and encouraging, and that probably has the best chance of being fully realized at this moment. But all these goals, there's nothing. very few of these goals are actually enshrined in law. These are all, they're trying to change goals to resolutions to try and give a little more meat to it. It doesn't necessarily, these as currently situated, these net zero commitments wouldn't get us to 1.5, a 1.5 degree level Celsius that the goal is. So, I think what's going to come out of this is they did say, all right, we want new commitments. We're going to extend our deadline to, I think, 2022 for updated, new, stronger commitments, and hopefully, that'll come out of it. Saudi Arabia, the conundrum for Saudi Arabia is the same as it was going in. How do we bridge to a different economy, while still producing fossil fuels? And also on top of that, so much of what they claim they want to do and what they have set out to do is based on technologies that are still new and not proven to be scalable. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll master these technologies and turn around and make it a whole new economy based on these. But that's yet to be determined, like so much coming out of COP26.
If you look at how well all of this syncs up with Vision 2030, which is it's all about getting the Saudi economy away from oil as the primary source or the only source of revenue for the government. It's like Saudi Arabia sort of knows that the future is, not the present. It's not producing oil as we were, letting the market determine the price, and then everybody use as much oil as you can because it's just the easiest way to power our cars, to do anything. It's like Saudi Arabia was a little bit ahead of this. We talked about this last week. We sort of discussed about how this was a bit of a pivot. The Green Initiative was a bit of a pivot for Saudi Arabia to say, okay, look, this is, sort of tied into Vision 2030, but this isn't about money. This is about sort of the future of what's going to happen. I mean, Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman said earlier this year that Saudi Arabia would be pumping every last drop of oil and putting it out there. So I think it's, it's interesting because the Saudi perspective, the oil producing nation's perspective here is we've got to work our way toward a different world. And we're doing our part, not just in energy, we're investing in EVs, we're developing new ways to get energy out of hydrogen. We are building our own solar and wind farms, and we're doing all of these things here. But, you can't just write out oil as part of any solution in the next few years, especially because it's like, well, we're just going to have energy crisis after energy crisis. So I think it's really interesting that they're bringing a perspective to this, which is like, okay, look, we are big producers of oil. We know that. And we also know that because we are trying to make it so that our economy is not completely dependent on this. But, we also understand the stakes are high here. I mean, look at the temperature in Mecca this summer hit 150 degrees. And it's like, they know. I mean, they know. And so I've been fascinated with this the last few days, kind of keeping up with the coverage, watching it online and on news channels, because it's just like, this is the big show. This is a big deal.
I have to say, this COP26 has been must-see TV, which is either commentary on our dorkiness or I don't know what it is, because it has been fascinating. And Saudi Arabia, as I referenced, November 2014, I think Saudi Arabia saw its future then, and they knew that the model wasn't working. And I think when the energy minister talks about pumping the last molecule of oil, I think they know better. They're never going to get to the last molecule of oil. Right now it's a race. It's interesting that there's a race, climate change, it's a race. And a big thing coming out of COP26 was, all right, we have to stop. This next decade is the pivot. We can't be hemming and hawing. We have to step up. We have to make hard decisions. We have to abide by them. And that's their point. So, this window is a lot shorter. We have 2070, 2060, and 2050, goals for various countries, but this next decade is the pivotal thing. Mm-hmm. Saudi Arabia, Prince Abdulaziz will say, we'll come up in the last molecule, but Saudi Arabia knows they're going to have billions, maybe trillions of dollars of stranded assets where they're going to leave oil in the ground, either because the global market has left them behind, there's no demand, or preferably Saudi Arabia has moved proactively to alternate visions and alternate sources of energy and alternate sources of revenue again. So their race is this next decade too.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about these technologies about carbon capture, but also, hydrogen and renewable energy. They see hydrogen as a great potential for revenue down the road, because that's a transport fuel as well, like oil. So the race is on. The Saudis will say one thing, but they know the score, and they know that they have to make this next decade really productive and transformative, and they have to maximize whatever fossil fuel revenue is coming over the next, and it will be coming for more than a decade, but we don't know. I mean, 2040. Who knows? Timelines go out to 2045, but the race is on. Saudis know it better than anybody, like you say.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it must-watch TV. Is it's like we're sort of seeing in front of our eyes a chance for like almost all of the world leaders to basically come together and agree on something, and that Saudi Arabia's like buy-in to that agreement is so pivotal. It's sort of like, is it going to happen? Like you're sort of like waiting for this big buildup, and it's fascinating.
Or not. And this is what I mean. Saudi Arabia can't get out of the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked to our very opening podcast. Our very open was a discussion of why Saudi matters. It's a country far, far away from the U.S., but it seems to get in the mix on everything. And here it is, COP26, perhaps, the most consequential climate event since the Paris Agreement, and probably bigger than that because time is short. And Saudi Arabia is right in the middle of everything, for good or bad. I mean, it's caught a lot of criticism, but it's trying to make its own way. Like every country at this event, at this gathering, is trying to make their own way. It seems that Saudi Arabia is on the front page.
That should do it. Well, stay tuned. Hopefully we're doing COP26 next week as well, because there's something awesome that comes out of it.
Wouldn't that be nice?
You can get this podcast anywhere you get podcasts, but if you get a chance, we would really appreciate it if you wrote a review, especially a glowing review. Anywhere you get it, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, hit the subscribe button. Just gets the podcast delivered to your feed or to your device, so you don't have to download it automatically. Richard, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucian.